morning, grade 7s. We're doing some Easter cookery today. There are 2 recipes on the last lesson before the Easter holidays on Sector, and one of the recipes is for Hot Cross Muffins. This is a really good, easy way of getting all the spicy, fruity, lovely flavourings of a hot cross bun without having to work with yeast, which I know that you're going to learn quite soon, and some of you have done it already with bread making. So this recipe is on Sector, and it says at the top 60 grams of dried cranberries. And step 3, boil a small kettle of water, and in a small bowl soak the dried fruits for 10 minutes, and this makes them plump and juicy. Well, I've already done that with the cranberries. Step 1 is your oven at 200 degrees. I think that's a little bit hot for this, so I've turned it down to 190. And you need a 12-hole muffin tray with paper cases. That's one of these. And these are muffin cases. These are proper muffin cases, so they're quite big. If you're using smaller ones, that's fine. As long as they're all the same size, then they'll all bake at the same rate. So don't do big and small in the same tray. If you don't have any muffin cases, you can cut out a generous square, quite a lot bigger than each hole in the tray. Fold it in 4, and then you can push that, like that, into your muffin pan. And you can actually buy these in the supermarket like this, and if you go to a coffee shop, this is what muffins are usually in. But they're very expensive to buy like that, and it's really quite easy to make it. Just make the right size of square and push it down. Once you've got one right, use that as a template to cut the others. So there's the tray ready, and we've made muffins before, so we know it's quite easy. You're going to sieve your dry ingredients. That's the 2.5 cups of flour. Remember, we have a wet mix and a dry mix for muffins. So there's 2.5 cups of self-raising flour. Now this is slightly different, this recipe. Usually self-raising flour is all you use, but this one also asks for half a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. That's not baking powder, it's bicarbonate of soda, sometimes known as baking soda. It looks like that. That's the end of my old packet. I've got another one in the cupboard. So it says half a teaspoon. So what you should really do is get a heaped teaspoon and then half it using a knife. Probably is the best way to go. Or you can use your measuring. Oops, that's a fork that came out. Never mind. Half a teaspoon. There we are. Put the rest back in. And one of the most important things with bicarbonate of soda or baking powder is that you always sieve it, because see, it always has little lumps. And if you get one of those lumps in your mouth when you're eating a muffin, it tastes salty and soapy, and it's absolutely horrible. So make sure that you sieve it. And to the dry ingredients, I'm also going to add the spice. Where did I put that spoon? Oh, never mind, get another one. Okay, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. Now I like things spicy, so I'm making them quite heaped. But remember, it's teaspoons, not tablespoons. And the other thing that we need is some nutmeg. If you have it, use it. If you haven't got it, don't worry. Nutmeg looks like a little nut. Fancy that. And we're going to grate it on this very fine grater here. This is called a microplane. But you don't have to have this, and you don't have to do it. But I've got them. So these are very, very sharp. So be very careful that you don't grate down to your fingers. It's very sore if you do. Right, so it says 2 teaspoons of cinnamon and half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. That's not enough, so I'm going to go a little bit more. But you can buy ground nutmeg in a packet. You don't have to get the whole one and grate it. I just think it's fresher and nicer to have it. Again, don't stress about any spices that you don't have. Most people have cinnamon. You could use a little bit of, perhaps a teaspoon of allspice if you haven't, or mixed spice if you haven't got nutmeg. It's not a problem. Alright, so that goes through the sieve. And then your recipe says 200 grams of caster sugar. 200 grams of caster sugar is a cup. If you want to cut down the sugar, you can make it 3/4 of a cup perhaps, or you could use soft brown sugar if you'd like to do that to vary it, depending on what you have. So there we are, there's all your dry ingredients, and then we're going to make up a mixture of the wet ingredients. I've got sunflower oil there, 2/3 of a cup. I used a 1/3 cup and filled it twice. Sunflower oil, plus 2 eggs, plus buttermilk. Now it doesn't matter if you haven't got buttermilk. So just looking at your recipe, what I've got here is all the dry ingredients, all sieved, the sugar, flour, spices, and I've added the currants. Now I've made a slight mistake, but it won't really matter. It actually, when I looked back at it, it said that I should have put all the dried fruit into the boiling water to let it plump up. So when you do this, you do that. Put all the dried fruit, the cranberries and the currants in there into the little bit of boiling water. If you forget, it doesn't matter, but start with at least the cranberries anyway. So they've been soaking, so now I'm going to drain them through a small sieve. I don't need the liquid for anything else. There we are. So there's the cranberries. They do look a lot fatter and more juicy, and that's what we want. So they go in there now. And in the jug, I've got the oil, buttermilk, and 2 eggs. Now, we haven't used buttermilk before. If you can get it, you get it over in the supermarket close to all the other bottles of milk, usually off to the right. On a shelf, not actually behind the glass doors where the big cartons and bottles of milk are. But this buttermilk is a byproduct really of cheese making, and the one that you buy is slightly thickened. It's like runny yogurt. I'll show you the texture, the consistency, just as I pour a little. There you are. It's just, if you can't get it, the next best thing is to get full fat milk out of your fridge and add either a teaspoon of lemon juice or a teaspoon of vinegar, and that will curdle the milk slightly. That means it just makes it thicker. If you can't do that, the other alternative is to have maybe 3/4 of a cup of milk and put in 1/4 of a cup of natural yogurt, or even a flavoured yogurt. It wouldn't matter. That will thicken it. So 3 ways you can get buttermilk: either in a carton, or with full fat milk with vinegar added, or full fat milk with a teaspoon of lemon juice added. Anyway, I happen to have the real thing. So there we are. Now, once again, wooden spoon and a spatula together. So there's all this mixed together. And as I said, you can use brown sugar if you wanted to. And then, with muffins, a little bit like the scones, gentle handling, don't overmix. So pour in all your liquid. This is called a balloon whisk because it's shaped like a balloon in that part, like you would blow it up there. And that's used for whisking eggs and cream and really light liquids. So there we are. Again, use your spatula and get every last bit of the oil and milk and egg out. There's quite a bit more coming out. Alright, then gently mix it together. Now I can smell the spices. Really nice. These are really nice to make perhaps for Easter Sunday. They would be lovely for a special breakfast or for sharing it with your family really any time in the Easter holidays. There we are. That's enough mixing. Quite a wet mix. That's it ready to go. Now my tray. and either the bought cases or the ones you've made. Now here's another little trick that will help you. Sometimes I see students taking this spoon and they start dolloping mixture into the cases, and that's really messy and you end up with bits spilt all over the tray, and that smokes, those blobs smoke and burn in the oven and spoil your trays as well. So the best way to do this is to get your 1/3 cup. I'm saying 1/3 because I've got large cases. If you have smaller cases, use 1/4 cup. And I put a little bit of oil in there and run it round with my finger. Then fill the cup, press it against the side of the bowl and just dollop it in there. Do you see how easily that comes out? So plop straight in there, and they're going to be really generous sized, really lovely hot cross muffins. If it starts to stick to the cup at all, just put a slight amount more of oil into the cup again. So there we are. It's really important that everything is the same size, not just to be fair when you're passing them round, but so that everything bakes at the same rate. Wow, I think we might actually get more than 9 out of this. When these are baked, we're going to let them cool on a wire rack, and I'll show you how to make a delicious lemon icing, a thick white icing, which I'm going to put into a piping bag, and I'll pipe crosses on the top of each one. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but if you would like to try it, it's quite a fun thing to do, and I'll show you how to make a piping bag that you can use without having to have piping tubes or anything. We can make it out of baking paper. Now look at the difference here. Using your spatula again, there is a whole muffin still at the bottom of that bowl. So I need another paper case, at least a whole muffin there. Oiled cup, fill it to the top, press it to the side of the bowl and dollop in there. Now these should be lovely, big, generous, tasty muffins. If you want to make another one and make them all slightly smaller, you can. But always use the same size cup, slightly oiled. There you are. Ready to go. So we've got 9, 10, 11 muffins. Pretty good. Remember, if you don't have currants, you can use raisins, which are much bigger, juicier dried fruit, or you can use sultanas, or you can use a mixture of these two and currants. Currants are the small black or dark, really dark ones. So any type of dried fruit. You could even add chopped apricots if you don't have enough of these. You can chop up dried apricots. You could put, we've put in the cranberries. You could, if you like it, you could put crystallized ginger chopped up through them as well, but that's not to everybody's taste. Another variation that you could do is to put orange rind in the mixture, just very fine orange rind or lemon rind. That would also give a nice flavour, especially if you didn't have enough spices. So there's quite a lot of alternatives there. And to cut costs and for convenience, you can always mix up powdered milk and add your lemon juice or vinegar to that, and that will make it into buttermilk for you, as you've seen me use powdered milk always at school. It's cheaper and it's more convenient. So there you are. Put your muffins in the oven and then test them with a skewer after about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how fast your oven is. We'll come back later when they're ready, and when they're cool, we'll ice them with lemon icing and put crosses on top. Thanks for listening. You'll see the recipe online. Good to see you. Bye. Hello grade 7s. Nice to speak to you again. I hope this is working for you, this technology at home. you know, you can email me anytime or talk to me through Sector any Tuesday. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is, having made these Hot Cross Muffins, I gave 4 to the neighbours yesterday when they were still warm, so the batch is actually quite a bit bigger than this, but this is what we've got left. What I'm going to do is to make some thick white icing and show you how to pipe crosses onto them to make them look like really nice Easter cakes, Easter muffins. So what I've done here is I have sieved, very carefully sieved, icing sugar. It's essential that you sieve any icing sugar that you're going to pipe. If there's little lumps in the icing sugar, it will block the end of your piping bag if you haven't sieved it beforehand. So I want a thick white icing, and I'm adding lemon juice. If you don't have lemon juice, it doesn't matter, just add water from the tap, probably lukewarm water. Now icing is quite a difficult thing to give you measurements for. I want the icing to be fairly thick so that the crosses don't spread and run all over the muffins. That's just the juice of half a lemon there, and it looks like this amount of icing sugar is going to use up all that lemon juice. So the main mistake that people make when they're learning to do icing is to take a big bowl of icing sugar and start adding lemon to it or water to it. It's better to go very gradually and get the texture or the thickness that you're looking for. Now I can see that that's still going to spread slightly just by the way it's landing in the bowl, so it needs a tiny amount more of sieved icing sugar. And again, it's one of those things that comes with practice. These are perfectly nice muffins without crosses on the top, but if you want to learn to do some piping, it's a nice way to start. That's slightly better. Yes, and just another little bit there. Lemons are fairly available at the moment. Lots of people have got big lemon trees in the garden. I haven't, but I've got a friend that gives me a lot of lemons, and I can't bear to just use the juice. So I always take the rind off, even if I don't need the rind just now. I've saved it there on the board. I've got this amount of lemon rind, and this is a little zester, but you can use the fine side of a grater to do it just the same way. So if I put that lemon zest into the icing, it would taste really nice, but it would block up the piping tube. So I'm going to put that into Glad wrap and freeze it for another day for something else. So don't waste anything. We shouldn't be wasting anything anytime anyway, but certainly in the current times in which we live, we need to be really careful about using everything wisely. So there we are, just a small amount of really thick icing. And then to make a piping bag, if you don't have one, this is how you do it. Get a roll of greaseproof paper and take the bottom corner and fold it up to the top there, so that you've got 2 perfect triangles. And then a pair of scissors to cut that. Here they are. So that's what I did to get that. You could pipe melted chocolate if you like, but the chocolate tends to run out of the piping bag really quickly. You can't really thicken chocolate easily. Now, you would think, where's the point going to be for piping and point to pipe from? You would think the point would be there, but in fact it's not. It's the other way around. So what you do is put one finger there, pull up, so put it this way with the longest end to your left hand if you're right-handed as I am. And then close it into a cone shape. Do you see that? So there's roughly the middle. Put my finger there, close it into a cone shape, and then twist the other part that's left round and round to strengthen it. Now because I've done this lots and lots of times, I'm fairly sure what I'm doing. But you might find it easier to take a piece of sticky tape now and tape that seam there closed. That's probably the easiest way to go when you're beginning. But if you're quite confident, or you're getting, once you've had some practice, so again, put your finger in the middle, turn this into a cone shape, like an ice cream cone, twist, put your thumb inside and twist this round, and then fold the joined part, this seam here, holding it together, fold that inside, and it should hold itself together. But when you're not confident with this, I still think the sticky tape's a good idea. So there we are, there's 2 piping bags, one folded in and one sticky taped on the sides, and now I'm going to fold this in a bit as well. Right, whoops, so much for the sticky tape. Do you know what's happened there? I think a tiny amount of icing sugar has got underneath that tape and spoiled the stickiness a bit. Let's try again. Famous last words. I've been doing this a long time, haha. Right. Okay, fold in that seam again. Now, I need to get the icing from the bowl into the bag. Drop it from above. Let it fall into the bag like that. Then take another spoonful and let that drop into the bag from above. Don't go stuffing the spoon down into the bag, because you'll probably split the bag open as well. Alright, so now I'm going to lay it down. Now the sticky tape's not holding, but it doesn't really matter. Famous last words, we'll see what happens. Fold it at the top and start piping. Now, I haven't cut a hole in the bottom yet. I'm squeezing it and nothing's coming out because it's still sealed at the bottom. You then take the scissors and go really carefully. Just make a really small hole at the beginning. If it's too small, you can always cut a bit more off. If it's too thick, you can't put it back on. So there we go. I think we might make it a fraction bigger than that, the hole. Right, and just have a practice. So close it at the top and you press like a syringe, as if you were, I'm sure you haven't, but giving someone an injection with a syringe. You're pushing down the middle. The mistake that most people make when they're using a piping bag is they squeeze the bag from the middle, and then all the stuff, whether it's cream or icing, starts coming up the top and it gets all over the place. You need to apply the pressure from the top of the bag with one hand and use the other hand just as a guide, if you need to use this finger as a guide. It's slightly wobbly, but that's all right. And then lift it slightly and let it fall down like a piece of spaghetti. There you are. So there's the first one, and then we'll put them on a plate. Okay, so this way. You get better at it the more practice you have. This will be when the piping bag explodes, just because I said you get better the more practice you have. So continue to fold down the bag from the top and press it like a syringe. Apply a fairly even pressure to the bag. So I'm pushing it with my thumb. You see that? So that's quite good. Yeah, they're just a bit of fun, and of course they're giving the Easter message of the cross and the crucifixion. I mean, that's what it's all about. Whoa, that didn't go so well, did it? But that doesn't matter. And Easter, and they are quicker and easier to make than hot cross buns. But if you want to try hot cross buns, do that, because just look at the video on bread making and that will give you some revision on how the yeast works and the conditions that you need to put in place for the yeast to work. But the problem at the moment, wow, that's a really frilly one. The problem at the moment is getting white bread flour. So, but it will eventually come back into the shops. There's the one where I made the homemade muffin case. Remember, we made a square and folded it in 4 and then pressed it out again into the muffin tin. There we are. So I need to put more icing in the bag in a minute. That's all right. And to fill it up again, oh, I've only got one left, it's hardly worth it, but I will. I would get a bread and butter knife or a little spreading knife. Open the bag again at the top. You can refill it. You don't need a piping tube because you only want this kind of spaghetti sausage, if you like. Drop some icing in from the top. Let it fall off the spoon. There we are. Close the bag again. You can lay it down flat, push everything down a bit and fold it over or roll it down, however it's going to work for you. There we go. So one more. There you are. So if you don't want to make icing or you haven't got icing, you could do this with chocolate. But let the chocolate cool quite a bit before you put it into the icing bag. Chocolate tends to just run right out the bottom. So I would suggest that you practice on the bench or on the table until you've got it right. But the secret of piping is not to squeeze the bag with this hand from the middle or it starts coming out the top and makes you all sticky and messy. It's to apply the pressure from the top of the bag. If this was a big bag of cream, I would be twisting the bag from the top and have my hand at the top and do it swirls or whatever. That way I would be applying the pressure from the top like that. And I would keep twisting the top of the bag as I used the cream. But I can show you that another day. Anyway, there you are. There's a nice plate of hot cross buns. Nice and spicy. Lovely to share with the neighbours. As I say, I gave 4 away yesterday. So good to see you. Please keep in touch and send me your photos. And remember your evaluation. These are the things I learned. This is what worked. This is what didn't work. Next time I would do. Here's some variations. I will put a few copies of those questions on Sector for you to go back and refer to so that you can write evaluations of your work. Thanks very much, and I hope you're all keeping safe and staying at home. Doing lots of hand washing too. Good luck. See you next time. Bye.